Now, I was backstage. I wasn't listening to what Ed said, but a lot of people wearing Canada shirts. Was there a game this morning or something? I missed that? Yeah. Yeah, woo. Yeah, there you go. Well, I'm so glad to have all of you here today, and this is the end of a great series, and I've had so many great emails and texts and different thoughts shared with me about this series, God's at War, and they've come from Lakeside Central and Lakeside Downtown and people who have been watching online, because that's who connects with us. We have a group of people watching online, well over 100 people today. We'll have Lakeside Downtown who will be watching our talk today. There will be those who are watching in the cafe. Welcome to all of them. And then, again, there will be many who will watch online this week. And so we're just glad to have our whole audience with us this morning as we wrap up this great series, God's at War. And I know that there are a number of guests here today, and so let me just kind of bring you up to speed. Some of the people who have been here every week, they've kind of heard this a number of times, but I just want to review for all of us because it's so foundational what I want to say, and then we'll build upon it today. We have been talking about these little g gods. The word God spelled with a little g, and we have used the word to describe them, that the Bible uses to describe them, and we call them idols. And that all of us chase after one kind of an idol or a little g god at one time or another in our lives. We do. And chasing after these little g gods or these idols is not one sinful choice among many choices, but I believe, and I've said this all the way along, that every sinful choice, every choice that we make that is destructive in our lives, most often comes because we have taken something that was beautiful that God has created, we turned it into a little g god, and we've chased after it, and we find that it can be destructive in our lives. And so we've been using this definition of idol, and it goes something like this. It's something we look to, that does not have God's power and ability to give us what only God has the power, ability, and authority to give us. We look for a substitute for God, that God has this ability to give us this full and abundant life, and then God has this ability to satisfy these natural desires of our heart, and really only God has the ability to do that. And when we turn to something else other than God, even though it can be a good thing, it can become an idol in our lives. And I said, and you have this list, and if you've got a program this morning, there's a little message note there that you can follow along. And I gave you this list and kind of printed out ahead of time, but these are the natural desires that every one of us look to. Having these kind of natural desires is what it means to be human. We all need worth and value. We all need security. We all need identity, intimacy, meaning and purpose, contentment, hope, healing, and significance. These are normal things to seek after. But too often, we turn to something other than God, a little g idol, or little g god or an idol, to satisfy something on this list that only God can ultimately satisfy. And we look at how we can make idols out of these good things: food, sex, entertainment, success, money, achievement, accomplishments, whatever. They're all good things. All of them have been given to us by God as gifts, but we run after them, we chase after them to fulfill something or more than one thing on this list, and when we do that, they become an idol. Now, today we're going in a little bit of a different direction, because up until this point, I've been talking about something that we would turn to for something on this list. We're moving from the something to the someone. We're not turning to something today, we're turning to someone, a relationship that will fill us up in one of or more of these areas, sort of on the inside. So today we're going to look at the God of love. Now I know you figure, love? Love is such a beautiful thing. How could it become a God? So glad you asked. That's what I'm going to tell you this morning. And to understand how God can become a love, or how can love can become a God, we need to kind of go back to some ground work. We have to do some groundwork. We have to go and get some background information, all right? And we have to go back to the beginning of human history. We have to go back to the words that Moses wrote in the book of Genesis, and we have to find some foundational principles that will help us understand this. And God has created everything we know and see, and his creation is all complete. He's finished his creation. And all the way through his creation, he said these things are good or they're very good. But God now looks at something and he says for the first time, it is not good. It is not good. And this is what he says in Genesis 2, verse 18. The Lord God said, it is not good for the man or woman, he's talking about mankind, to be alone. It is not a good thing for people to be alone. God sees a man all alone. He says, it's not a good thing. I will make a helper suitable for him. Now, we need to understand two words in here, helper and suitable. Now, the word helper is not some sort of assistant or subservient role. In fact, the only other times this Hebrew word is used, it's used of God. God is our helper. So it definitely doesn't mean it's subservient in any way, shape, or form. And when we bring it into human relationships, it is talking about that relationship being equal. It talks about a relationship being an equal status. Okay, so helper is about equality. The second Hebrew word is for the word suitable, and it is describing someone who complements the relationship. It's complementary, okay? So what we're getting from this verse is that God creates romantic relationships, and they are to be equal and complementary, okay? That's how they're supposed to be, complementary, whatever way you put the emphasis. That's what they're supposed to be. And out of this romantically connected relationship between a man and woman, God says that something is to happen to this, one flesh relationship. And we find that in Genesis 1:28, and it says that God blessed them and said to them. Now, this is the first blessing of God given in the Bible, that they are to be fruitful and increase in number and fill the earth, and then they're supposed to kind of be good stewards of the planet. That's what that other part of it says. Now, what he is saying is that children come from this complementary and equal and romantic relationship. And this is God's plan from the beginning of human history, that we'd have an equal complementary relationship and that children were to be a blessing out of that relationship. And marriage and romantic relationships are good things. They're gifts from God. Having children, good things. They are gifts from God. In fact, it says that these children are a blessing. But I need to stop here for a moment. And I need to put a caution forward to all of us. Maybe there are some of you who are here today and you have tried to have children, and that's not happening. And I don't want you to take from what I've just said here that somehow God is not blessing you. We are talking about the children being a blessing to the relationship, not God blessing you. They are different things. So just don't want you to walk away and say, well, we're not being blessed because we don't have children. That's not what I'm implying. Sometimes God gives children as this blessing, and sometimes he doesn't. It's just the way God is. But God's design for humankind was that we'd have this complementary, equal romantic relationships that would be blessed with children. And that's how it would be in a perfect world. But we go to Genesis 3, and these first people that God creates, they decide they want to be their own God. They want to be like God. They want to chase after things on that list through themselves, and they want to chase them through other little g gods. And when that happens, something happens to these very two important things that God has said. Equal relationships, they're to be complementary, and children are a blessing out of that relationship. So we go to Genesis 3:16, and it says, to the woman, he said, and now God is moving from blessing to curse, said to the woman, I will greatly increase your pains in childbearing, and with pain you will give birth to the children. I have no idea if childbearing was without pain before that. I have no idea, but I'm guessing it was. And so those of you who have had children go, they're to blame. But what he's really saying here, and what's being written and what's God saying is that this relationship that was a blessing now has pain attached to it. What was a blessing will now have pain attached to it because people chased after little g gods. And then he goes on, and he says, your desire, and the word desire, some believe that it is those internal human desires. There's different interpretations, but some believe it's your internal human desires, that list that I've given you. You will seek them from your husband. You will seek them from your husband. So what was to be a complement is now kind of going to be something that you're looking for completeness out of. It was to be a complementary relationship. Now you're going to seek completeness, and he will rule over you. What was to be equal will now have a struggle attached to it, a battle for control and rule. And so everything gets turned upside down because they sort of sought after these little g gods. Now, these romantic relationships and children out of those relationships, they become an idol when we turn to them to make life complete. When we turn to them to make life complete. We move these relationships from complementary relationships to relationships that make us feel complete, and we turn the blessing of children into a God when we look to them to make us feel complete. So we turn to these relationships, and we turn to out of those relationships having children because we think this is going to make us complete. This is going to make us whole. This is going to satisfy something on that list. And this has been happening down for the last hundreds of thousands of years. Nothing has changed. People are turning these beautiful things, romantic relationships that end in marriage and having children, and have turned them into little g gods or idols to satisfy something inside them, a natural human desire that only God can satisfy. Now, in the book, Gods at War, which many of you have been reading and studying in small groups, the author in the book Google searched the most romantic movie line. So I thought, I'm going to do exactly the same thing. I'm not going to trust the author. I'm going to do my own research. And so I put in that thing, the top 10 romantic movie lines. And I got 3 different lists. And on 2 of the 3 lists, it was exactly the same line. Now, what wasn't on either of the top 10 lists that I looked for was my wife's favorite romantic line of a movie. And her favorite romantic line, at least I think it is, comes from the movie Pride and Prejudice, and it's the one with Keira Knightley and Matthew McFadden. And at the end of the movie, they're looking at each other in the fog of the morning, and she says to him, or he says to her, "You bewitched me, body and soul." And I just want to gag. I am so romantic. It chokes me right up. Different kind of choking. I think I should get credit that I'm watching the movie in the first place anyway. Yes, thank you. But that's not the number one line. The number one line comes from another movie called Jerry Maguire. And Tom Cruise looks deeply, tearfully in Renee Zellweger's eyes and says these words. You, say it with me. You complete me. And if you think I want to gag on the first one, I want to throw up on the second one. I want to say, are you kidding me? You complete me? There's no pressure in that. None at all. But when you think about the movie, it's really a search by Tom Cruise to satisfy something that's broken in him. Because he does chase after the God of pleasure with sexual encounters, and he talks about other things that fall under the God of pleasure. And it doesn't cut it. And then he tries to, run after the God of success, trying to be a successful sports agent. He's not that good at that either. And I think he finally turns to a human relationship because the other 2 haven't made him feel complete, and he thinks, hey, you're going to complete me. He is looking for another human being to complete him, to make him whole. Instead of it being a complementary relationship, it has turned in his life to a relationship that will make him feel complete. You know why there's never been a Jerry Maguire 2? Because it would start off with the 2 of them looking at each other and one of them saying to the other with anger in their eyes, "You're driving me crazy. The relationship is not cutting it. I'm not getting out of it what I hope for, and I feel very incomplete, and it is time to move on." That's why there's never been a second one. Because they sought out of the first relationship something that is impossible for humans to give to one another, the completing aspect. And after the passion and the infatuation wears off and those words kind of dim, the main characters would probably say, I think maybe there's something else or someone else, another small g God, that will make me complete. You see, God wants us to have meaningful and loving romantic relationships. He does. We've been created for that, to complement us. But they were never created to be turned into gods, to fill something on that list, and yet we continue to do it. And I know there's lots of people who have this idea, if they would admit it. You know what? Unless I have a romantic relationship that leads to marriage, and unless out of that relationship I have a child, I will be incomplete. I remember one man saying that he did not know what true happiness was until he got married. And then he said, and it was too late. That's a man who said that, of course. If we turn to romantic relationships and having a child to make life somehow complete, to fill something on that list, these beautiful gifts get turned into God, and they're not good for us. When we put a love relationship to another human being ahead of our love relationship with God, sacrifice and worship that more than we worship and sacrifice for God, it messes us up. And it's easy to do it. Romantic relationships have enormous power over the human heart. We desperately desire them, don't we? I mean, some people feel like there's this emptiness inside of them, and something on that list is missing, and they believe that the human relationship of love will satisfy that desire. And love relationships can become like a narcotic, and you sort of echo the words of rock legend Robert Palmer, where he says, admit it, you are addicted to love. Then we can be addicted to love, believing relationships somehow will satisfy something that only God can satisfy. And when we buy into the myth that we will not be complete until we're married, until we have a child, then we're like the rocker Meatloaf. Now I was wanting us to do this song, but it was too late. But he does that song, I'll do anything for love, right? But I won't do that. I don't know what that is. Probably singing. But we can do anything for love, can't we? It can have enormous power over us to have this relationship with someone of the opposite sex. It could do something incredible inside of us. We'll sacrifice it for it. We'll be willing to do anything for it. And I understand the enormous pain and loneliness and fear and sort of that restless spirit of not having someone to love and someone to love you. And I know how intense that feels. But I've watched young men and women who feel like they're missing out and life is passing them by. And they're 19. And they will do anything for love, including lowering their standards that they once held and said, I'll never give this list up. That they will abandon their God-given values. They'll ignore wise advice. And they end up settling for someone willing to do anything for love, and it ends up in a disaster, and they're left with a greater emptiness and pain than loneliness ever felt. I watch men and women violate God's principle of being matched properly. We use the word unequally yoked. See, God wants us to kind of be connected by faith in the same values, and wants temperaments and personality and backgrounds, all that stuff to be, complement one another. But sometimes we go, you know what, I do anything for love, and we just kind of push that aside and shove it aside and blow it away and go, I'm not doing that because I'll do anything for love. Because it'll satisfy, we think, something on that list, and it never does, and it leaves us feeling empty, maybe emptier than when we started. We thought what once would make us feel complete leaves us feeling very incomplete. We long for a soulmate, and we feel like we didn't find it. And I have young men and women who've come into my office and said, I made a big mistake. I did anything for love. And I got married. And I knew within the first month I had made a huge mistake. I knew it. And now I feel worse and empty and broken and incomplete because it didn't materialize. I thought it would do something for me that it just couldn't do. So the big question I ask all of you who are single here today, will you do anything for love? And what is that anything? What is that anything? This guy Becker has this quote. The failure of romantic love as a solution to human problems is so much a part of our modern man's frustration. No human relationship can bear the burden of godhood. However much we may idolize and idealize him or them, they inevitably reflect earthly decay and imperfection. He says, we're all broken people. We're going to the wrong source. After all, What is it that we want when we elevate the love partner to this position? And he's kind of this position of God. We want to be rid of our faults and feelings of nothingness. We want to satisfy something on the list. We want to be justified, to know our existence has not been in vain. We want redemption and nothing less. Needless to say, human partners cannot give us this. Now, some people in a marriage relationship look for the stuff on that list. They don't find it completely. They maybe feel a little bit of it. And so they're not ready kind of to trash the whole marriage. They're willing to stay together. But they don't feel complete, so they believe that, you know what? Do you know what will make us complete? Having a child. That will be the missing piece. That will be the missing piece in our relationship. It'll make us feel complete, the missing piece. Well, I'm a father of 3 adult children, and I'm here to tell you that my children have been at times the missing piece in my life. The problem is I'm spelling peace, P-E-A-C-E. Sorry, Heather. Sometimes they are the missing piece, and as parents, we know that to be true. And so many couples, especially women, and I understand maternal desires, my wife has educated me on them. We have the idea that without children, we're not complete. We're not whole. And then moms and dads do this to their kids. And they're trying to find completeness through their kids or something off that list through their kids. And they end up pushing their kids to do things their kids really don't want to do, but they aren't afraid to say they don't want to do them. Moms and dads vicariously start to live through their kids. The whole universe revolves around their kids. They believe, that kids are the controlling factor. They almost become what they're sacrificed and worshiped. Moms and dads believe that their kids are superior to other kids, and they criticize other people's kids, and they verbally beat up teachers and coaches who actually have really rightly assessed their kids, but they don't like it. And there's little discipline, too much freedom. The kids become kind of gods in the house, and they're sacrificed more and worshiped more than God himself is. And it's so easy to do this, to turn romantic relationships into these little g gods. It's so easy to turn children and having a child into that little g god. And there's a story in the Bible that really kind of points this all out. And the story is found in Genesis chapter 29. And I'm not going to put it on the screen. I'm just going to work through my Bible on it this morning. Let me give you a little background information. The main character, his name is Jacob. And he eventually will change his name to Israel. You're kind of thinking, that's kind of funny, naming yourself after a country. Actually, they named the country after him. He's sort of the father of the nation Israel. And he's not well loved by his father. He's not his father's favorite, and he knows it. The brother is definitely dad's favorite child. His name's Esau. And he may have never really even felt the love of his father. And to kind of compensate for that, his mother overly protects him and overly loves him. And mom pits the two boys against each other from time to time. Now, his brother's not too happy with him, and he doesn't love him probably at all. In fact, his brother's issued a death threat. If my brother did that, I would say, I don't think he loves me. But Jacob has deceived and cheated his brother out of a birthright, which is an incredibly important thing in that day. And he's kind of sort of cheated him out of his inheritance, and the brother's pretty angry. And Jacob is forced to flee because there's a threat on his life. And I think his life at this point feels pretty empty. He never experienced a father's love or his brother's love, and he's missing his mother's love, and there's no sense of God's love, and he has to flee to survive, and he's far away from home, and we're not sure where God is, and we're not sure relationally where he's at. And I think there's just a whole lot of stuff on that list that's missing. I think he feels insecure, lack of identity, lack of worth, lack of value, lack of significance, lack of hope, all these kind of things. And he travels, and he shows up to the home of his mother's brother, Uncle Laban. That's where we pick up the story. And after Jacob had stayed with him for a whole month, Laban said to him, "Just because you're a relative of mine, should you work for me for nothing? Tell me what your wages will be." So Uncle Laban says, "Hey, you've been working really hard, and I want to pay you what you're worth. You shouldn't have to work for free just because you're a relative." And so he thinks about that, and we have this little side note here, and it says this: "Now Laban had 2 daughters. The name of the older was Leah, and the name of the younger was Rachel. Leah had weak eyes. We have no idea what that means. Some people think it means that she was pretty hard on the eyes. Some think that she just kind of squinted and didn't see real clearly, or there was no sparkle in her eyes. I don't think it's any of those. I think it's probably, we're just doing a comparison thing with the Bible often does. And we're comparing one sister to another, and it's because we look at the other sister and she's more beautiful. In fact, it goes on. It says this, Leah had weak eyes, but Rachel was lovely in form. Means she had a bod from God, and she is like beautiful. Like she's just, you're imagining it. And it says, Jacob was so in love. And we don't want to blow by that little phrase. Oh, he's so in love. The word so in love is a little phrase that's saying he's so addicted to love, he's willing to do anything for love. That in fact, he says to Uncle Laban, I'll work 7 years in return for your younger daughter, Rachel. I'll work for free for 7 years. Just give her to me as my bride. That's what's called the bride's price. A man would pay the father-in-law when he was going to marry the man's daughter. I love that. I had 3 girls. I wish we were continuing the custom, but it didn't happen. And so he says, I'll work 7 years. That's how in love he is. That's how in love he is. And then Laban says, it's better that I give her to you than to some other man. In other words, better the devil I know than I don't know. Stay here with me, he says. So Jacob served 7 years to get Rachel. But listen how in love this guy is. But it only seemed like a few days to him because of his love for her. Wonderful movie, romantic line. Basically, he's saying, if I have her, this most beautiful woman that I've ever seen, I think that my life will be complete. It'll fill the emptiness and the void I'm feeling inside. So much is riding on the relationship with Rachel. Now, verse 21 is an odd verse. Any man who is married here, none of us could imagine saying this to our father-in-law just before the wedding, but Jacob does. Jacob says to Laban, give me my wife. My time is complete. In other words, 7 years is up. He probably was circling the calendar. And I want to sleep with her. I can't imagine saying that to my father-in-law. I just can't imagine. Hey, I want to get married so I can, have sex with your daughter. Oh, that go over big. But he's just so in love and wants it so bad, her so bad. And they had this huge wedding feast. Everybody's invited, lots of food, lots of drinking. And a bride during the bridal week is veiled. You don't even get to see her eyes. These thick veils cover. It's just part of the custom. And I think Jacob has eaten a lot, and I think he's drank far too much. And he goes into the tent. It's usually the tent of your mother, but his mother wasn't there. He goes into the tent, and the bride comes in, and she takes off the veil, and they have a sexual relationship, and it's kind of the final act of sealing the marriage. And so that's what's going to happen here. But then there's this like Jerry Springer moment. It says this, but evening came, and Laban took his daughter Leah and basically gave her to Jacob, and Jacob slept with her. Now, Jacob doesn't know it because it's dark, and he doesn't see the weak eyes, and she's probably not saying whole much, and the veil's off, and he's probably had a little bit too much to drink. Then it says this, when morning came, and light started to shine in the tent, there was Leah. That's probably one of the greatest lines of disillusionment and disappointment than you've ever heard. He's expecting Rachel. He's longed for Rachel. She's going to make him complete. He wakes up and he sees Leah. He sees Leah. And he's pretty steamed. Who wouldn't be? And he goes to Laban. He says, what have you done to me? I served you for Rachel, didn't I? Why have you deceived me? And by the way, Jacob's name means deceiver, and he's the master at it, so he's only getting what he deserves. Laban replied, it's not our custom here to give the younger daughter in marriage before the older one. Listen what Laban's solution is. Finish the bridal week. In other words, a week of celebration. Then we will give you the younger one as well. So in other words, you can have Rachel, you can have 2 wives, in return for another 7 years' work. And so now for Rachel, he's got to work 14 years, but he is so in love that he's willing to do that. He finished the week with Leah, and then Laban gave his daughter Rachel to be his wife. He had a second wedding. And it says, and then Jacob lay with Rachel, and he loved Rachel more than Leah. It doesn't say he didn't love Leah, just Rachel a whole lot more, and everybody knew it. And Leah feels so incomplete because maybe she thought, hey, if I play along with this and there's this trickery, that he'll really love me. And that I will feel the love of a man and it will make me feel more complete. And it didn't happen because he doesn't really love her that much. And so then she thinks, well, maybe if we have a child together, that will make things complete. And it says, when the Lord saw that Leah was not loved, he allowed her to have children, but Rachel couldn't. And Leah became pregnant and gave birth to a son, and she called him Reuben. And she said, it is because the Lord has seen my misery. And then she says, surely my husband will love me now. I've given him a child. Now that will make our love strong and complete. But it doesn't happen. And she conceives again, and she gave birth to a son. And because the Lord had heard that I'm not loved, she talks about being unloved, and she names him Simeon because she still doesn't feel loved, and she has a second child. And then again it says, and again she conceived. And I don't know about you, when I read that word, again she conceived, I'm thinking, that guy Jacob might not love her, but he's not too afraid of having children with her. And again she conceived, and when she gave birth to a son, she said, now at last my husband will become attached, connected, will be a soulmate is what the word means, because I've borne him 3 sons, and she named him Levi. Now, you'd like to think that it ended there, right? You think, well, maybe Jacob, he's still with Rachel and she feels complete and he feels complete, and maybe it's just Leah that's sort of on the outside. Chapter 30, verse 1. When Rachel saw that she was not having children, she became jealous of her sister, and she says to Jacob, give me children or I will die. Now, I think that's a little over, dramatic, a little melodramatic. Give me children or I'll die. But I think she's saying, you know what, I thought marrying you would be it, but it wasn't. So let's have children because I feel pretty empty because she's having them and I can't, and I don't feel fulfilled. And you get this mess going on. And the reason you have this mess is because these relationships were never designed to make anybody feel complete, and having children was never designed to make anyone feel complete. And that's why they don't. But we continue to try that. And there are these downsides. Number one, we put unrealistic expectations on those relationships. If you are thinking now, you're not married, and you think a romantic relationship that leads to marriage will make your life complete, you will put sort of unrealistic expectations on that relationship when you get in it. If you think you don't have children now, but you think having that will make you complete, you'll put these unrealistic expectations on that relationship. And husbands do it, and wives do it, and children or parents do it to their children. And I mean, you think of the list, right? Just think of the list. Worth, value, security, identity, intimacy, meaning and purpose, contentment, hope, healing, significance. You're getting that from one of those. We try. And when we try, we end up putting unrealistic expectations. And we go into these with the wrong expectations. And it leads to the second thing, is that we end up putting unrealistic pressure on the people in these relationships. When you turn to something that only God can give you, and you want it from the relationship, and it doesn't come through, you start putting pressure on the other person. That's what Rachel says to Jacob, give me a child or I'll die. No pressure in that. Look what Jacob's response is. Am I in the place of God? Part of it is saying, if I got the power of God, but I think he's also saying, am I God to you? Is that what you're trying to find, what only God can give? And I think Leah pressured Jacob into loving her by having more and more children, hoping the pressure would buy his love. And they feel it. And they know they can't live up to it. And there's this relational chaos starts happening. And I think that if you're doing this, if you have these unrealistic expectations and you're in the relationship and you're starting to put the pressure on someone else, you probably have been hearing words like, man, I can't do anything right. I can never please you. I can never make you happy. And when that continues, it goes to the third, in that we usually end up disappointed and disillusioned, just like Jacob was when Leah was there. And we start comparing our spouse with somebody else's, and we start comparing our kids to somebody else's, and it just increases our disappointment. We say words like, why can't you be more like? And if we don't say it, we think it. We start getting critical of these relationships in all sorts of ways, in all sorts of words. We start to feel bitterness and resentment, and sometimes we don't even know why we feel it. It's because we've had these expectations that are not met. We've used this pressure that didn't work, and we just kind of feel disappointed. And so we start a little bit of resentment and bitterness. And we get angry and frustrated at increasing and alarming rates with spouses or children. Now, this is just me. But I think that the number one reason that marriages fail is that men and women go into them with unrealistic expectations. They're looking for soulmate solutions, something on that list, and it never happens. And then when it doesn't, they put pressure on the relationship, and over time there's this disappointment, and the disappointment grows to resentment and bitterness, and it often leads to broken relationships. And some of you are here, you know exactly what I'm talking about, because right now you're in that kind of relationship. And you've had expectations that aren't being met. Some of them are realistic, some of them are not. You've nagged and pressured and pushed each other for change. And now you're kind of disappointed. Maybe it's with a spouse, maybe with a child, and you're kind of ready to bail on the whole deal. You're right there. Some of you know what I'm talking about. Some of you know what I'm talking about, but it's a relationship you used to be in. And that was the pattern. And some of you are feeling this right now. You're going, what's the solution? David, what is the solution? Well, Leah gives it to us, believe it or not. It's found in Genesis 29, verse 35, and she says this. She conceived again, child number 4. And when she gave birth to that son, she said, this time, different than all the rest, I will praise the Lord. You notice what she's not seeking? The love of a husband. She is seeking to do something different, to praise the Lord. Now, the word praise in Hebrew is the word yada. And it's not like Seinfeld, yada, yada, yada. It's not that word. It's not that, in case you were thinking. The word means to acknowledge the presence or to cast your hopes and dreams on something or to rejoice with thanksgiving and gratitude or to confess a sin or to share a personal lament. And the word we might use today that's a little stronger than praise would be the word worship. She's basically saying, this time I will worship God. I am moving my worship and my expectation for completeness. I'm taking it off my husband Jacob, and I'm going to take it off of having these children, and I'm going to place it squarely on God. Squarely on God. And I'm going to look to Him to satisfy the deepest hopes and desires of my heart. And I'm not going to put them on human relationships anymore. I'm going to love God more than my husband and my children. That's what she's saying. The solution is about loving God more than loving the person in the relationship. That is what it's about. It's about loving God more than the romantic relationship partner, more than a child. And when we do that, turn to God, give Him our love. Let Him be what satisfies the desires of our heart, and let Him be what we worship and what we seek after. It changes everything. It is about loving God and believing that He alone can give us the desires of our heart. Now, there's this funny verse, and I want to share it this morning. And it doesn't make sense at first read. It says, if anyone comes to me, this is Jesus speaking, does not hate his father and mother, his wife and his children, his brothers and sisters, yes, even his own life, he can't be my disciple. And you're kind of going, I don't get that. Hate? Well, Jesus is using a literary technique called hyperbole, and we use the opposite of a word to emphasize something, okay? So he's really using the opposite of the word love, and he's using hate, and he's using to emphasize. Now, we know that Jesus is not saying hate those people, because he teaches lots of other places to love your family, love your children, love people, love your mom, love your dad. He knows we're to love. Other Bible writers say the same thing, and Jesus would high-five them and say, absolutely. So he's not talking about hating. What he's saying is that you will love me. You will love me in such a great way that every other relationship who you have deep love for, they'll feel like hate. That's how much broader your love for me will be for those relationships. He's saying this needs to be, what Jesus is saying, the greatest place that you put your love is me. It's the greatest love. He's saying love all of these deeply, sacrifice, care for, all of those, but not in place of me or more than me. He said, don't love any of them more than me. That's what he's saying. Jesus says these words, another portion. Love the Lord your God with what? All your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment. He's not talking about the intensity of love. He's talking about now the priority of love. Love me first, love others second. He's saying there's this love that's intense for me, and the priority is me. He's not saying don't love others. He's just saying love me first. He's saying don't love others, just love me more. That's what Jesus says. Now here's the thing. If you get anything from what I say today, get this. When loving God is a priority, when it is our greatest love, and when we put Him in the center of our lives and turn to Him to satisfy those things on the list, it is the most loving thing you can do for the rest of your relationships. Because when you love God with all your heart and make it a priority love and make it a very intense love, here's what I'm going to tell you. If you're in a dating relationship, it will get better. It will be better. If you're in a marriage, it will be better. If you have children, it will get better. If you're a friend, it will be better. Any kind of human relationship, if we put God first and love Him the most, it makes every other relationship better. Every other relationship is better. And when God is the number one love in our lives, and we can't find romantic love, or we can't have a child, we at least have a place to anchor to a God who loves us and a God who we know has our best interest and heart. Because sometimes those things don't happen, and we need a place to anchor our lives to. So, here's the question. Do you love God with all your heart and soul and mind and strength? And is it God who is the ultimate source of those desires of your heart? Or are you chasing some other God that is leaving you feeling empty? Are you? Let's pray. Well, Father God, this has been one of those hardest talks to teach, because I know there are men and women here feeling so lonely because they're not in a relationship. Maybe they once were and it's over. Maybe they never have been and they're longing for it, and it hurts and there's pain and loneliness. And Father God, I just pray that you will just give them a sense of your presence right now. And I know there are some men and women who are married and are trying to have children, and that's not happening, and they're feeling that right now. And I pray that you will comfort them with your love. But Father, I know everyone here desires to have great relationships with whoever. And may we understand today that it comes when we love you the most and we love you first. It's like getting on the airplane and putting the oxygen mask on before we put it on somebody else. We put the mask of love on as we love you so that we can love others in a greater and better way. Help us to love you through your power of your Spirit. We pray these things in Jesus' name. Amen. As I've been saying all the way along, you and I were created for value and worth, security, identity, intimacy, meaning and purpose, contentment, hope, healing, significance. We were made for those things, but we were made to find them in the Creator, not anything created. And we are not to seek after food or sex or amusement, success, money, achievement, accomplishments, romantic love, or children to somehow take the place of God. And it's not getting to the place where you don't have that sometimes you don't chase after. It's recognizing that you can and that you will. And you recognize what that God is. And you do everything you can not to pursue it because you're aware of it. And as we've been going through this series, our idol has been this golden calf from the story illustrated in Exodus chapter 32, where the nation Israel worshiped a golden calf, believing it was their God. And this calf represents all of the idols that we can chase. It really does. It represents that. And I wonder, what are those gods in your life? And imagine what life would be like if you could remove that God from your life and replace that removal with the presence of the living God. That if you were able to clear the stage of this God and replace it with the greatest act of love by God, and to love God in return. Imagine what that might do to your life. But that question I want to leave you as we sing this song is, what or who is your God? And what would it mean to remove it, to clear the stage of it, and to replace it with a relationship with the loving God?
Clear the stage and set the sound and lights ablaze. If that's the measure you must take to crush the idols, jerk the pews and all the decorations too, until the congregation's few, then have revival. Tell your friends that this is where the party ends, until you're broken for your sins. You can't be so sure. And seek the Lord and wait for what He has in store, and know that great is your reward, so just be hopeful. 'Cause you can sing all you want to, sing all you want to, you can sing all you want to, but still get it wrong. Worship is more than a song. Take a break from all the plans that you have made, and sit at home alone and wait for God to whisper. Beg Him please to open up His mouth and speak, and pray for real upon your knees until they blister. Shine the light on every corner of your life, until the pride and lust and lies are in the open. So read the word and put to test the things you've heard, until your heart and soul are stirred and rocked and broken. 'Cause you can sing all you want to, you can sing all you want to, you can sing all you want to, but still get it wrong. Oh, worship is more than a song. We must not worship something that's not even worth it. Clear the stage, make some space for the one who deserves it. Anything I put before my God is an idol. Anything I want with all my heart is an idol. Anything I can't stop thinking of is an idol. And anything that I give all my love is an idol. I can sing all I want to, I can sing all I want to, and we can sing all we want to. We can sing all we want to. We can sing all we want to and still get it wrong. Oh, worship is more than a song. set the sounds and lights ablaze. If that's the measure you must take to crush the idols.
Hopefully that video and the demonstration of clearing the stage has said something to you. Kind of going, well, that's what I need to do. And we're going to stand together and sing a song. Now, I need to give some instructions here. If you've got kids in Lakeside Kids, you need to go get them near the end of the song. And I really encourage you, if your kids are especially like grade 1 and up, bring them back in. We're going to do 7 baptisms today at the end. Powerful stories, powerful moments. And these are great learning lessons for your kids. And if you're not got kids, please stay. Sing this song with us. The baptisms, because of the way we do them with video and because of just the process, maybe those 7 will take a max of 20 minutes. Some of you stand in the lobby and talk that much afterwards. And these are critical community moments, and so I'm encouraging you, don't run out early, please. Please don't do that. Get your kids, come on back, stand at the back. We'll have some time of community, but we're going to stand and sing a song that will be in response. And you might just want to sing along, and maybe this is your response to what you've heard today. And when I'm done that, we're going to show a little video, and then we're going to be right into the baptisms. But in that meantime, you got to go, wow, God's doing something here. You're going to run into baptism. I'm going to give you a chance. There are people down in both of these corners. You need someone to pray with, just go over to those corners, and they'll pray with you today. So please stand now. Hope you'll stay for the baptisms. It's so, so important. And let's sing this song together. It's an old song with a new tune.
I will follow you.
Best I can do to keep them in there.
I will follow you. No turning back. No turning back. No turning back. No turning back. This is my heart cry. Lord, I'm going with me. The cross before me, the world behind me. This is my heart cry. Lord, I'm going with me. The cross before me, the world behind me. I will follow you. I have decided I will follow you. I have decided no turning back. No turning back. No turning back. No turning back. This is my anthem, my life for your thing, my every move bring cross before me.
The cross before me, the world behind me. I will follow, I will follow. The cross before me, the world behind me. I will follow, I will follow. The cross before me, the world behind me. I will follow, I will follow.